right, the time approaches. The time approaches. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the New York Renaissance Festival, and welcome to the Glory Glass Forge. My name is Michael Alexander, and I'm a glassblower. Is that why you guys are here today?
Yeah!
So, who's seen a glassblowing demonstration before? Lots of you. I love it. It's a very lovely space for it. New York has lots of glassblowers. Who's seen a glassblowing demonstration here at the Renaissance Festival? Marvelous. Okay, so you guys likely had the fortune of seeing a master at work. My predecessor, my teacher, and the man that I learned pretty much everything I know about glass from is a man named Mark Haller. All right, so Mark was an artist through and through. He could accomplish things with color that I dream of and will continue to dream of until I can realize them as well. I learned a lot working under Mark, and today I hope to share and showcase some of those things in today's demonstrations. What is glass? Sand? Yeah, absolutely. So, sand, being one of the most prevalent elements on the planet, sand is made up of silica and oxygen. If we were to take those two elements, that would also make clear quartz. Any stone buffs or geologists here? Yeah, a little bit? We all know what quartz is, right? So if we were to take this is silica, and if we were to mix this with oxygen, we would get that quartz, that sand. All right, so glass has sand, but that's not the only thing in it. There are other ingredients as well. Sand, or silica, melts at like 3,000 degrees. Pretty much all of my equipment would break down at 3,000 degrees. So we add things called flux. All right? Some of the original glass recipes, I'm going to run through it real quick and hopefully keep you guys engaged, but this is the tension building part of it. So, if I were to take, believe it or not, seaweed. So I'll take 60 parts sand, 180 parts dried seaweed, and about 6 parts of seashells, crushed seashells. Mind you, these are all things I can find on the coastline. If I take those in their respective ratios, and I were to heat them up about 3,000 degrees in those right ratios, I would have a glass recipe. So it makes sense that through time, eventually we would come across it. All we need is 2,000 degrees, roughly, of temperature in order to accomplish that. And that's very likely what happened. We're going to jump back about 4,500 years ago. There was a massive party, we're going to assume, a large bonfire, everyone's dancing around, jovial music, drinks, libations. And the next morning, they look out and they see something that's very similar to this. Who knows what this is? Obsidian. It's a type of volcanic glass. It didn't look exactly like this. It probably looks closer to this though. Eerie, green in hue. Right? And that's because those ingredients that they were using, they didn't know it was an accident, a byproduct, led to a pale green and eerie in hue colored glass. Once we realized we could use better sand, like on the islands of Murano. Oh, they have the best sand. Alright, so we used that clear sand, that clean sand, and we could finally accomplish closer to clear glass. And that was by removing all of those impurities, those metal oxides, those metal salts that were all saturated inside of the glass. Alright, so we had this weird colored glass. We removed those metal oxides, and then what happened when we started adding them back in? We get colored glass, absolutely. We learned that different colors, different metal oxides accomplish different colors, whether it be cadmium or cobalt or magnesium, right? Copper. All these different metal oxides, when they were added back into the glass, they gave all of these wild, lovely colors. Of course, glass is very finicky. That changed the properties of the glass. So you couldn't use two colored glasses next to each other because they have different recipes and they would break. Today we live in a very fortunate time and age where men and women from before myself have gone through and balanced out all these ratios. So I can use this lovely array of palettes to produce all of these wild colors and shapes, right? Inside of this furnace lies a crucible about yay wide. And inside of that crucible is about my weight's worth of glass. It's nearly 200 pounds, about 150 pounds worth of glass, sitting inside this mechanism at above 2,000 degrees. I'm going to be using a lot of terminologies, tools, and things. If you're unsure of what I'm doing or why, please speak up and ask, okay? Okay. The reason being, I want to instigate a little bit of curiosity. And the way to do that is by getting you guys to ask questions. I started off curious, and in the past several years, I've learned some really amazing things. Can I share one of them with you? It doesn't pertain exactly to glass blowing, but it is something I think you'll find marvelous. I will not be setting this parasol on fire. This is a method of fire spinning that I discovered. You may have never seen it before, neither had I, right? It was through development, discovery. It makes sense, right? We see the air currents, they're all over the place, but by maintaining a bit of curiosity and a bit of whimsy, we've been able to discover, glass has been around for 4,500 years, right? So is fire, and you guys have never seen that. So, my point being, stay curious through the whole process. Ask questions, because if you ask a question I don't know, I get just a little bit more insight, a little bit more clarity, a little bit more light shined on an area that I would have otherwise been dark.
That was cool.
All right. How was that? Did you guys enjoy that? Great, very good. I'm about ready to get started again. Let me know if you have any questions. Today I'll be demonstrating two things at my first demonstration today. The first will be solid form. I'm going to be making a flower. And then the second is going to be a blown form. I'm going to be making a simple vessel. I say simple. Hopefully it turns out beautiful. We'll find out. All right. Without further ado, my friends, I would like to introduce the star of our show, the molten glass. You'll notice I'll be spinning, but if I stop spinning at any point in time, we're going to get this dripping that ends up happening. And that's not my goal. My goal is to keep the glass really, really nice and even the entire time. I'm picking up some of this colored glass, and I'm guessing, with the green color that I'm using, this has a bit of chromium in it. Possibly. See, I think magnesium goes purple. Learning about these metal oxides has been one of the most fascinating things. Like, there's a reaction between silver green, and silver in general, and cadmium. It's amazing. I don't think any of the reactions I'm going to share with you today have that. Alright. I'm not too worried about this shape. This is going to be the stem of the flower, so this will get stretched out. So is glass a solid or a liquid? It's a trick question, isn't it? Alright. So, glass is a liquid, right? It's just though, when it seems like it's in its solid state, it's a liquid that's just run out of energy to continue flowing. Alright? Let's say I had a bunch of magnets, right? And these magnets, I can turn the magnets on and off. And right now, the magnets will be turned off. And they're going to be shaped like marbles. Alright? I want to use magnetism because if you're aware of how ice crystallizes, they'll all line themselves up, and then there will be a repeating pattern that occurs, right? You're aware of that. That's why I want to use magnetism, because they'll line each other up. So if I were to take an entire jar of marble, or an entire jar and fill it with marbles until it couldn't fit anymore, and I were to say, is this space filled? Yes, but also no. I could take some sand, and I could throw sand into there and mix it all in. And then I could say, is this space filled? In actuality, no. I could fill it with water. I could keep filling in those gaps smaller and smaller, right? So that's sort of the way that glass works. In that, once all of the space is filled, in order for crystallization to occur, there would need to be enough of the materials close enough to each other. But the marbles can't rotate or line themselves up because there's sand stopping them from moving. And the sand can't line themselves up because there's too much water in the way. And that's why glass is a perpetual liquid. It won't ever be a solid. It can never hit that crystallization. All right. I'm going to keep talking your ears off, but I did have a purpose. I needed a few moments to allow this piece of glass to be more solid. in these next few moments, I'm going to take that solid glass and drip the remainder of this glass down and off of it.
While he's picking the sand.
All right. So, I've got some glass, colored glass, on here now. Melting it together. Glass has a great memory. So much so that every individual interaction is recorded in the glass. It's much easier in glass not to make a mistake than to try and correct one. That's something that's taken, unfortunately, too long to learn. Alright, let's get this nice and hot. Alright, and the colors in here, quite marvelous. So glass can shift between this fluid state and a solid state, right? How do I change that parameter? How do I make it more liquid? Absolutely. So I'm encouraging the stem in this case to be more on that fluid state. So that when I reheat everything, it, ideally, will want to stretch out more than the rest of it. That also, however, means that my base is going to get a bit unruly. So I've got to be mindful of that. Learning how to juggle was a useful skill that I did not realize would also help me with the glass blowing. But my friends, I'm going to walk around and share with you this lovely flower that when you sat down today did not exist. It was but a concept.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so this glass has this lovely property called a reduction. And that reduction will allow the glass to hit a reflection. There are metal salts inside of the glass itself, or rather metal oxides, and when I heat them up in an oxygen-depleted environment, as in an environment in which all of the oxygen has been eaten away, you get this reflection, this metallic silver color. Right? I can't see the bottom end, but I'm just trusting it. Is it silver?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to give another reheat real quick. Get this guy into the annealer. The last piece of equipment that is worth introducing is the annealer. The annealer allows us to work on a piece until we're done, and then we can store it away for a little bit of time. All right. I'm just going to torch this end a little bit, make sure it's nice and hot. smooth out those edges. All right, here we are, a lovely flower, first piece of the day in. Oof. And this box is called an annealer. What it does, it's kind of like a hot refrigerator. It keeps things at 1,000 degrees. And the purpose of this, when the glass is cooling down, are you guys familiar with expansion and contraction? It'll become it'll become pertinent a little bit later. The glass wants to expand when it's hot and contract when it's cold. Okay? So if I have, where is my mug? I'll use this as an example. So if I have a piece like this wall is rather thin, right? All things considered. Maybe a quarter of an inch, less than that even. All right, and this ball is probably an inch across. So this ball is going to take a lot longer to cool down than this wall will. There's a piece of glass, let's see, I haven't really broken anything off, but yeah, so it'll take a while for the ball to cool down. What the annealer does is it sits at 950 degrees, and the entire piece hits 950 degrees. That means the wall, the ball, all of it. Then, once I turn the annealer down, it'll drop down to 850 degrees. And it'll sit there for like 2 hours. And that will allow the wall and the ball to come down at the same temperature. So you can understand how that's beneficial and useful, especially when we're making these complex shapes. All right. So, any questions before I get started with the blown object, the blown vessel? Yes? 7 minutes they would be shoveling in. Yeah, and I'm fortunate, again, today, in our day and age, I use dragon farts. And sometimes I use dragon farts and magic. This one's a little intense. This is the bit of magic in there, too. Does that answer your question? Oh, so unlike what we were working with before, all of those same principles apply. You saw how goopy the glass was? You saw how fluid it was, how much it wanted to move around. All of those same principles apply to this glass as well. So we discovered glass about 4,500 years ago, and we discovered blown glass was an option in about 100 BC, if I'm not mistaken. And then, nearly 200 years later, at 100 AD, we started seeing glass windows show up. It was interesting the way that worked. Not just windows, though. Stained glass windows. Imagine hearing these stories, and you couldn't read, right? If you were a common person, you wouldn't have had the knowledge of being able to read. But you've been hearing these stories told by the churches and the kings and queens for years and years, right? And suddenly, instead of hearing these stories, you can see them cast in light. What a miraculous sight that must have been, you know? Glass has definitely impacted our culture, probably in ways that none of us expect. I don't think skyscrapers would quite do what they do if they weren't sky high. And glass, right? It's the fact that they're glass that makes them miraculous. I think we're living in a glass age, a glass era, right? How many of you guys have used some sort of glass in your day-to-day? Rather, more impressive, how many of you haven't used a piece of glass today? Whether it be a windshield or a glass of water in the morning, or even just to see, and it becomes pertinent for some people. You found some glass? Those glass are sharp. If you want, you can leave it right there on the edge of the, that's perfect. Thank you. That's where I would have put it. I appreciate you, small one. All right. So I'm going to walk around and give you guys a little look-see. Actually, let me get a bubble blown in here first. And then we'll go ahead. To blow the bubble, I have added pressure, and then I capped off that end. Check it out. And that bubble is still expanding. Why does that happen? There is an increase in pressure, but this goes back to the statement I made a few minutes ago about expansion and contraction. I'm adding more air pressure to this entire system, right? This side of the system is very hot. Introducing my water dragon. Very hot, very, very hot. So when the gases hit this side, they're continuing to expand. They want to. There's more pressure in there. Yeah, it can. If I spent most of my time in here, I would not be able to touch this region. And it has happened in such a fashion. When I'm... Probably, I would love to have a set of titanium tools. And tungsten carbide probably... Oh, I guess tungsten probably does conduct heat. Yeah, that's fascinating. I was going to walk around and show you guys what we're working with. Here. So this is the vessel so far. Can you guys see the cup out of this? Yep. This might help you. Does this help? Does this look like a cup now?
Wow. Cool.
All right, and this has actually had a couple of purposes, walking around and sharing with you guys. At this moment in time, I'm able to take a bit of a break, just a momentary break. I need to allow this piece to cool in the same way that I allowed the flower to cool. In a moment, I'm going to be adding a layer of glass around this, and I need to be able to make sure that the bubble is in the very center of mass. So far, it is. And if this glass is allowed to cool, it'll be my skeleton for a few moments while I mold and shape that glass around this piece here. I'll be using my trusty magic It's Not a Cloth. Any ideas as to what this is? It looks like an old book. It's pretty appropriate, but don't books burn at 451 degrees Fahrenheit? Not when they're saturated in water. There was a book. This is a reference that Mark would make during his demonstrations often. But paper burns at 451. You'd know that if you read the book, Fahrenheit 451. So yes, it is actually just paper. But that paper I've saturated in water. And I can tell you it's special all day. I can even tell you, if you'd like a sample of it, I'm happy to give you one with any transaction. All right, friends. The wait is over.
He put more.
And again, what happens if I stop rotating? It'll go.
Can't even imagine touching with your own skin, that thing, right?
Alright, that looks pretty even, pretty consistent all the way around. These tools are called the jacks. They are a necking tool, meaning they'll help me establish where that neckline is. And later on in the process, they'll also help me open the vessel up from the inside. The glass is really hot, and as much as I'm tempted to reach my hand in there and it's not gonna happen. I'd like to have a hand to pull back. The other day someone asked me, do you ever lose the impulse to eat the glass? Darling, I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know if I ever had the impulse, just because I've been burnt by it once or twice.
Wow.
Sometimes, when I'm loading glass into the furnace, I do, just because I've got the door open for a few minutes at a time. Yeah, I also use a respirator, because some of these ingredients, when they're raw, are caustic. Especially when they begin off-gassing when you're cooking the glass. Yes, sir. I have made many mistakes. And the only reason that I can be sitting in this seat talking to all of you guys is because I've made enough mistakes to where I don't make them as often. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I still make mistakes. But I call those learning opportunities. And do you want to know the most important thing about making mistakes? As long as you don't get frustrated at yourself or at somebody else, then you can learn a lesson. Have you ever had an argument with somebody, and as soon as the voices are raised, you stop listening? We go through those same things inside of ourselves, right? We start yelling at ourselves and we stop listening to ourselves. We stop paying attention. We start making mistakes. We get more frustrated. Reinforcing cycle. Yeah, so I have made a number of mistakes, yes. And I learned from those mistakes. And hopefully I'll continue to. Yeah.
I forgot my stabilizer.
All right. I'm gonna build up a little bit of extra heat in here, and let's stretch this. Have I ever made a what?
Start gonna
An
share.
animal. Okay, so I don't like talking about her. Her name is Shelly. I did make her once. I asked an audience at the very end of the Sherwood demonstration. This is my one more. So this is my first full year of doing the glass blowing demonstrations. I started off in Sherwood this season, and rookie me asked the audience fairly blindly, "All right, guys, what should I make?" And I should have gestured towards the things that I've made. I didn't. A sea turtle. Huh. Well, I was feeling rambunctious, and I went for it. And I learned a lot of lessons. It's a code word for I made a lot of mistakes. I learned a lot of lessons in that, but I still have Shelly. She has a broken arm now. She's an experience. If you ask nicely after the demonstration, I might retrieve her. Yeah, I haven't done much sculptural work. Most of the work that I've done is from the man that I learned most of the glass blowing from. And most of his work was vessels. He had a lot of vessels and some sculptural work, but as an artist, the sculptures are him working with the medium. And breaking down the thing that he's trying to express, breaking down the medium, and then rebuilding the pair of those things in a way that are cohesive and that communicate a message. Mark was an artist through and through. It was impressive. I miss the fella. All right, so we're about ready to break this piece off. Break it off? But it looks so nice. I'm gonna add a small amount of glass to the end of a punty. I'm gonna score this line. And I'll do a little walk around real quick, give you guys a gander as to how we're moving along so far. That green is spread out a little bit, but it's still kept its shape. Kind of looks like a pear. I don't see how, I just see a single one. I know, the puns. I know I introduced my... Okay, back to it. Telling you, clown. This is an amazing environment. I've spent the last 8 years out here, and I've got to say it is incredible. The only reason that this is possible, though, is because all of you guys decide to come out here. You decide to share your time and give us the opportunity to make this magic. You know? This wouldn't exist. I couldn't imagine it existing in any other capacity. So, yes, a very, very big thank you to all of you. Because of you, we are able to be here. The craftsmen, the musicians, the artists, and everybody else who's finding their way. I didn't start off as any of those things. But my full-time job became myself, learning who I am as a person. You know, my full-time job wasn't working on somebody else's clock. It was figuring out what makes me tick and what makes me ick. All right. So I'm scoring the glass, and the thing I'm scoring the glass with has a bit of water on it. Scoring the glass causes a scratch mark, and that scratch mark would heal, because glass doesn't like to change temperature very easily, very much. So the glass is resisting temperature change, so much so, it's holding on to that temperature, so much so that it can actually heal itself from that break-off mark. All right, so my objective is to cool that down so that it doesn't want to heal. And that's what the steam does. That's what the water does on the file. Have you guys ever seen glass being cut? Molten glass, I should clarify. All right, I'm about to, so if you care to see, lend me your eyes. Although it looks deceptively solid, it is, oh gosh, it reaches this point of like leather hardness, right? It's this really interesting state of, it is still flexible. The heat sinks in from the outside of the vessel wall to the inside of the vessel wall, and it cools off from the outside to the inside. So when I'm cutting the glass, it starts off feeling like soft clay, and then it turns into like an eggshell, and then it's like an eggshell with leather on the inside of it, and then it's like stone.
Wow, it's getting shape.
This color's supposed to be an extra dark green. No, I really like the color though. I like what it's doing. Right now there will be, it is. Right now there will be a little bit of extra redness inside of the glass. And that's just by virtue of being so hot that as those electrons are returning to the shells below, they're releasing photons in the form of this orange. So just like the flower, when you guys sat down today, this was a concept, it was an idea, right? I think in retrospect, I'd like to add a little bit more dark, contrasting, stark colors, but this is someone's aesthetic, right? Beautiful, simple, not muted. Depending on if there's a lot of interest, a little bit later, I may be making a stacked chalice for the 5 o'clock demonstration. And the stacked chalice, Bismuth, would you hold up a stacked chalice for me? This is Bismuth, everybody. If you have any questions regarding the sales space, this is the person who can help you out. I can as well. But for the 5 p.m. demo, I'll be making a stacked chalice, just like that. So if you're eager to see, come back by. Thank you, friends. 1 minute ago, this is a Persian part. It's not over until it's out. All right. And I hope we're able to provide a bit of whimsy to you. I do accept tips. I have 2 tip boxes here and 1 over here. If you enjoyed the show, please let me know. Thank you very much, sir. And also, I'll be available for questions over here if you want to join me in the sales space. Thank you, guys.